at darknessintolight.ie.
Keep your business connected with Air Mobile, Ireland's largest 5G network. Switch today and get an iPhone 14 for just €140 with no limits 5G data and unlimited calls and texts. For more, call our dedicated business team on 1800 207 407. Go in store or visit air.ie/business. Air. Let's make possible. Unlimited allowance subject to fair use. Available on selected plans for businesses with up to 9 employees. Pricing excludes VAT. For full terms, see air.ie/business.
Take your taste buds on holiday with Italian-inspired dishes from Dunnes Stores. Mix and match any two for €4 from the chilled section. Delicious 10-inch stone-baked pizzas, all butter garlic bread and fresh-filled pastas. Pair your pasta with our Napolitana, Arrabbiata or tomato and mascarpone sauces. 250-gram pots are 2 for just €3. Plus, with our 10.50 grocery voucher, you save even more. Dunnes Stores. Always better value. Terms and conditions apply. Voucher can be used in the next grocery shop of €50 or more.
What problem does your business solve? How are you going to get customers to know about it? Can you protect your idea? Investors are ready. Are you? The Intertrade Ireland Seed Corn Investor Readiness Competition has real-world experts who will help you get your new business startup investor ready. Plus, you could win a share of the €300,000 prize fund. Apply today at intertradeIreland.com/seedcorn. Competition closes 1 p.m. on Friday, 28th of April.
InsureMyVan.ie.
Hi, I'm Ken Doherty. For all van drivers and business owners, InsureMyVan.ie is Ireland's low-cost van and commercial insurance specialist. For high-quality van and all commercial insurances, call InsureMyVan.ie.
City Financial Marketing Group Limited, trading as InsureMyVan.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
You ain't shit! I wish I was 50 years younger and I'd kick your ass.
Well, fans can be the harshest critics, you know.
And they often are.
A wife is often the harshest critic of her husband.
I thought I was invincible. That's what you're trained to believe as a sports person.
There was 4 million people in Ireland who knew much more about managing football teams than I did. When it comes to music, I can spoof with the best.
Your sporting career is the best time you'll have, and you know you have to hang on to it for as long as you like, because everything else is pretty crappy.
And this is not lies. Stephen Rothschild has never spoken to Jim McGuinness in his life.
And this is Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you 3 to 5. You can text us 53106. We're streaming the conversation as well, so you can listen on News Talk across the country, but also watch us on the Off the Ball digital and social channels on Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube and Facebook. This is the Saturday panel. Today marks the start of the Senior Hurling Championship when it comes to the race for the big prize, the Liam McCarthy Cup, at the end of July. Joining us to look ahead to the season over the next hour, the former All-Ireland winning captain with Kilkenny, Brian Hogan, the ex-hurler of the year from Clare, Jamesie O'Connor, and the former Offaly player and now GA rider with the Irish Independent, Michael Verney. Brian, Jamesie and Michael, how's the form this afternoon?
Good, John. Good. Cheers. My honours don't sound great in comparison to the boys, I'll tell you that.
Michael, you're here for the writing on the radio. That's what you're here for.
Good man.
Just to let you know, folks, the Joe McDonagh Cup is underway as well. We can't ignore that. So Kerry leading Kildare by 7 points to 6. But great to talk to you all. Just go through the fixtures, folks. Leinster Hurling Championship round robin, round 1. Antrim Dublin throws in at 2 at Corrigan Park in Belfast. Galway Wexford 4:30 throw in at Pearse Stadium all today. Kilkenny Westmeath 6 o'clock at Nolan Park. Then tomorrow in Munster. In the hurling round robin, round 1. Waterford Limerick in Semple Stadium at 2. Clare and Tipperary in Ennis at 4. Of course, Welsh Park has been kind of renovated at the moment. That's why Waterford are playing in Thurles. So we got a good structure, folks. We have a bit of jeopardy to it. 3 teams will lose out in Leinster, 2 in Munster. There's something online early doors. We love great hurling. But I suppose I want to ask you all about what you miss. Jamesie, what do you miss most about being a player now this time of the season? We're all getting excited about the hurling championship.
Yeah, John, I suppose you love this time of the year once the clocks go back. Most of the heavy physical trend is over and it's just the hurling and the club. I suppose the matches in training, the A versus Bs, mixing it up and, I suppose look at the ball flying off the ground and getting yourself and your mind and your touch and everything ready for what lay ahead. And I mean, this was back when we played the championship fixtures were probably, for the most part of my career, it was straight knockout, no backdoor. The games were set in stone 6-7 months in advance. So, that date was etched in the calendar from a long way out, whether it was Tip down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh or Limerick in the Gaelic Grounds, whatever. Everything was geared towards getting yourself ready for those days. But I was, look at the time of our lives, I'm sure Hoagie'd said exactly the same thing, and Michael, that to be part of it, to be down in Thurles or whatever in front of 40 or 50,000 people, or down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh or ultimately in Croke Park, that's what any player is, and we were no different, dreamed of. And we look at with some great days along the way, some disappointments, but yeah, certainly the big days, John. That's what it was all about, and the buzz that you got from whether it was bursting out onto Páirc Uí Chaoimh or Thurles or walking behind the Artane Boys band in Croke Park. That's what we all got the buzz from. That was where the juice came from, and it was just a privilege to have been part of it and to have played in so many of those big games.
Was there a moment that sticks out, Jamesie? One moment.
Best atmosphere I ever played in, John. 97 Munster final. Ourselves and Tip down at Páirc Uí Chaoimh. The place absolutely rocking. Brilliant stadium. The old stadium was just unbelievable. I know that the new stadium is fantastic as well, but just it had that bowl feel, John. All the noise stayed in the ground, and I remember, we were pumped for it. We left at 10 o'clock or 8 o'clock that morning, and then strode down to the Hayfield Manor, had our breakfast, went to bed for a couple of hours. Frank Loam was a UCC student at the Mardike lined up. Got the bus to the ground, the police escort, and it was just you were in the zone or whatever. And I remember coming out onto the stadium, and the ground, just the noise was just electric, and thinking to myself, like, this is what it's all about, this is what all the training's for, and thinking Tip won't get a reception like that. And Tip came out, and it just felt like the ground shook, So yeah, that atmosphere was unbelievable. And the Munster final obviously 95, the All-Ireland final 97, there are other highlights, but that day in Páirc Uí Chaoimh was special, John. It's
funny where you are in your journey in life. I was watching that. I was working in the IIB in London. I was watching that in a rice slip in a pub on Satanta Sports, that game, that Clare Tipperary game in 97. Brian Hogan, is there a moment that stands out for you? What do you miss about the whole thing?
Like James said, John, everything is geared towards the big days. That's why we all play. The game is the buzz, the adrenaline rush you get from running out in Croke Park or wherever it is in Nolan Park for the big championship games. You miss some of the mundane stuff as well, actually. At this time of year, the evenings are stretching. Just going in training, that kind of routine. You're in kind of that bit of a bubble with the lads. They're nearly, it's the cliche. You meet them 5 nights a week nearly, and so they're kind of your best friends and everything else. So it's that kind of just that kind of routine and the bit of crack and banter that you'd knock out of it. That's you definitely, when you come out of that, there's a period of adjustment. In terms of highlights, I suppose, apart from the obvious, maybe the finals, which are always just special occasions in and of themselves. I think it was 2013 qualifier against Tip in Nolan Park.
Yeah.
Was I just remember just the atmosphere. The stadium, I think, was full from 2 hours before the throw-in, which says enough. Just even in the dressing room before, we could sense you could nearly feel the vibration coming down from the stands. And afterwards, they just told us, lads, forget about getting a bus down. You're just going to have to walk down to Langton's, because the crowds were such. And anyone that knows Nolan Park, you walk down.
Did they carry you, Brian? Did they carry you?
No, sure. If you remember, we were in the qualifiers, so there was a bit of. They weren't too happy with us initially, but we didn't survive that. We played the following day was Cork and Thurles, and that was the end of the road for us. But obviously, stating the obvious, that was a huge match for us. Playing our nearest and dearest in our own backyard in a championship match. So that was a rarity, and I just remember it was just phenomenal. I think 23,000 is the capacity, or whatever it is. It was full. It was rammed, and it was rammed from. And just talking to family afterwards, that evening, they were saying it was just incredible. So that definitely is a standout memory for me.
Michael Verney, because you've seen both sides. You were a cornerback for Offaly in the championship, then you ended up playing for Wicklow, and then you're in the press box. You're covering all these matches, so you have to be critical of players. You have to have an objective eye as one of the top riders in the country. So it's been an interesting journey for you as well.
Yeah, I always find chatting to players, the fact that you've played. I don't know, they kind of feel like you're not trying to hoodwink them or anything like that. They feel like maybe what the experience or the journey is like a bit more, maybe. Just on a couple of things the lads were saying about what you'd miss most. There's nothing like, and I'm sure the lads would say it, with training games that they played in their own career, there's nothing like coming off after a session where you've probably gone hell for leather with a fella for 70 minutes, and the two of you have just emptied yourselves and you're spent, And it's just a really satisfying feeling walking off the pitch, knowing that you've gone toe to toe with this lad, you've been pulling and dragging out of him, you've probably been snaking each other from X, Y, and Z, but you're all in it together. You walked off the pitch, you're spent, and you're both playing a big part in your championship journey and getting yourselves ready, getting your opponent ready, and getting your team ready. That would be one, and the other would be just when Jamesie was talking about even going into the build up, going into a big game. You might think sometimes when you're a player, you'd be on a bus maybe. I remember we played Dublin in Croke Park in 2011, and you're going in on the bus and you're looking at all your buddies from your club and lads you went to college with, and they're having a jar outside the Big Tree or Quinn's or whatever it is, and you're thinking, geez, the boys are having a great time. And then you're kind of thinking, no, it's like, I'm on the bus, I'm in the middle of this. They're having a good time, all right, but I'm in the middle of what they're coming to see. And I think that's a big part of it. No one walking around your town, whether I was walking around Burr or whether Brian was walking around Kilkenny City or Jamesie around Dora Bearfield, everyone's buzzing over something that you're at the heart of. And a couple of days before a game, it's manna from heaven, really. You wouldn't want to get sucked into it too much, but you want to appreciate, the efforts that you're making and the buzz it gives people, the anticipation for a game, and there's nothing like that. And it's great going to games as a reporter and that, but nothing replaces being a player realistically.
Yeah, Brian was smiling there for anybody watching when you're talking about like training sessions. You 25 years of Brian Cody. You weren't there for the whole compliment of the 25 years, Brian, but all those Nolan Park, those legendary sessions.
Yeah, well, when Michael mentioned the banter, some of the great sources of banter came from some of those hot and heavy training sessions, maybe where it might have spilled over a little bit between individual battles between players, and you're rising them afterwards in the dressing room, and they're having to take it on the chin. So there's been a few instances like that where it's maybe spilled over, and the rest of the group take great mileage out of reminding lads, and it's good days.
And James,
we won't name any names, but there was definitely one player called up to another player's house to apologise over something that happened to play at one time.
Great stuff. James, you flew up to Dublin, didn't you, for the first All-Ireland?
Yeah, John. It's funny, the first time I ever flew was to the All-Ireland semi-final in 95. The transatlantic flight would come in from Shannon and make the compulsory stopover. And so we were well connected with the I suppose Aer Lingus and the airport. They looked after us well down there. So we get a bus straight onto the tarmac, onto the plane. Same thing in Dublin. You get off the plane, bus on the tarmac, ready to take you to the hotel or whatever. It was painless. I mean, the flight was only 25 minutes, John. So, you slept in your own bed the night before, and it was a routine then. We went to the same hotel. We do our warm up before the match, in the Alce Aer Lingus complex out there, and then straight into Croke Park. So, there was familiarity, I suppose, with the routine that we built up, and obviously Ger had researched it, and it just made sense, and it worked for us.
This is the Saturday panel looking ahead to the hurling championship with Jamesie O'Connor, Brian Hogan and Michael Verney. So, Limerick, Brian Hogan, you've been here, 2009, you were going for 4 in a row, you achieved it, but not without Tipperary pushing you to the Pannier collar. What are the challenges for Limerick this year? Does psychology, does history weigh more on a player as you continue to rack up these records? How are Limerick fixed?
I think Limerick are fixed very well, stating the obvious, based on the league final and the talk, I suppose, coming out of the camp. And I mean, look, the group are extremely professional in everything they're doing. The setup, obviously Caroline Curran and the background. I think they're ticking all the boxes in terms of what they need to do to put themselves in the position, I suppose, ultimately to win the All-Ireland this year. I don't think history is going to weigh too much on these guys. I think, for many of them talking, they're all pretty level-headed. They've managed huge expectation in the county over the last number of years. Like, I guess, look, to some extent, there will be a certain amount of pressure in that the talk within Limerick will only ramp up as the summer goes on, and it's how you embrace that or insulate yourself from it. Some guys like to try and avoid it, and that can be difficult. Obviously, the nature of the GAA, you can't cut yourself off from people altogether. And different people deal with it in different ways. But I think because of the setup that Limerick have there, I'm sure they will they'll address that in terms of, you know, be equipped with the tools they need to kind of keep the focus on the job at hand, you know, and such as the level of competition within the group as well. That'll help because, you know, while it's a team game, all the guys, I know from my own experience, you do tend to focus very much on your own performance, trying to ensure that no matter what else happens, you're going to be there come the big days, you know, that your performances are not going to dip. And you know, you see one or two articles already, guys dismissing the kind of talk around six in a row and all this kind of nonsense, which they have to do, obviously. But you know, I don't think it's going to be, you know, hugely distracting. I can't see the likes of, you know, your Declan Hannons and, you know, your Will O'Donoghues and your Caseys and these guys getting too carried away. I think they're too long in the tooth to lose folks from that perspective. But saying that, you know, it only takes, you know, a kind of a couple of percent. It only takes that kind of little bit of softness to creep in, and you won't know that till it's too late. You know, certainly, I think that's, you know, from our experience, probably, you know, it will happen eventually. But I just think this year, looking at them in the league final and looking at them during the league, I just think there's going to take a huge performance from someone to try and stop these guys.
Jamesy, it would not be possible, obviously, without John Cody's brilliant management, but Paul Connacht, the coach as well, they'll be writing maybe books about him in the future. He was with Clare 10 years ago. He won the All-Ireland with Davy Fitz. What is it that Paul Connacht has that stands out?
I'd love to know the answer to that, John. I think, you know, and I know Paul, but I don't know him well. I think, look, he just looks at things through a different prism, maybe to the rest of us. And I think, I suppose, when he first came in with Donal Maloney and Jerry O'Connor with the Clare Miners, you know, back, I'd say it was probably 2000 maybe in 2009, around that time frame. I just think he you know, bucked the trend and he was prepared to maybe accept conventional wisdom and, you know, question, you know, why are we doing this, why are we doing that? And clearly, you know, he's able to get to the essence of it and what's required. And I think you look at Limerick year on year, John, and you see incremental improvement that, you know, one particular year, okay, they're not getting goals, they're scoring them the following year. It's another year, maybe the high ball is an issue, and now they're probably as good as any, if not better than any other team in the country under the high ball. You know, and you just get the sense that every player that comes into that panel is a better player. Their skill levels are higher. You know, they're all crystal clear as to what's expected and what their roles are. And, you know, we saw that throughout the league. I mean, it was some statement of intent to deliver the performance they did against Kilkenny without Hannon, without Tom Morrissey, without Kyle Hayes. You know, and there was someone else missing, Will O'Donoghue, who obviously was suspended, you know. So to deliver that performance, and the guys that stepped in, whether it was Colin O'Neill, Colin Coughlin, Adam English is a good young player, signed with UL. These guys were able to step in, and there's no deviation or drop off in the standard or in the style of play. And that's obviously a testament to what they're doing on the training pitch. And like Clare threw the kitchen sink at them last year, John. Kilkenny, the levels Kilkenny got to in that All-Ireland final, you know, were phenomenal, and Galway even in the semi-final, and yet they're able to find the answers. And Connacht is obviously a big part of that. So yeah, I mean, he's a fascinating character. Obviously, look at an exceptional, you know, coach and an exceptional guy, and a guy who there's massive regard for, obviously, in Clare, and any of the players that ever worked with him, you know, whether it was Tony or you know, John Conlon would have nothing but the highest of regard for him. So Limerick are lucky to have him. And you know, John Kiley has, you know, there's a couple of Clare guys actually in that management team. Alan Cunningham would have been a selector with Dalo, principal in St. Kem's, and Shannon, fantastic guy, great Clare man. Angus O'Brien is a primary teacher in Broadford, again, a guy who's steeped in hurling tradition. He's in the backroom team. And,
you can tell it stings, Jamesy.
Yeah, it's stinging, yeah.
Sorry?
It stings.
You can tell it stings.
It stings, yeah. Well, look, you'd love to have those guys, you know, back working with Clare. And listen, Alan has given sterling service to Clare, and Angus is a, you know, great Broadford man. And I'm sure, look, he'll put the shoulder to the Clare wheel in years to come. But look, they're part of, obviously, a really successful management team that John Kiley has assembled, and he obviously, you know, it comes from the top as well, and the leadership that Kiley has shown. So, yeah, it's kind of depressing looking at it from a Clare perspective. You know, at the what they're achieving, and there's no signs. If anything, I mean, the panel is now arguably as strong and deeper than it's ever been under Kiley's stewardship. But, you know, people stepped up last year, and I think, the teams in Munster, obviously, the managers have got to look at, how they navigate the championship, because it's punishing. Clare have 4 games in 5 weeks, John. Everybody else it's 4 and 6. If there's a time to beat Limerick, it's probably in the provincial final. So I think it'll be interesting to see how teams go about it. But I don't think it's in Brian Lohan's nature or Davy Fitz's nature or Pat Ryan or Liam Cahill. All those guys were forged in the Munster Championship knockout era in the back in the 1990s. I don't think anybody would be taking a backward step, but certainly you'd have to feel that maybe an injury or two to key players might derail Limerick. That might be one thing, but there's certainly no evidence that their attitude or their desire or anything like else is waning, and that's obviously troubling for everybody else.
Okay, tomorrow then, Michael, Verney, Waterford. Davy Fitz will obviously have a few things up his sleeve, but they have Cork next week. You wrote in the week in the paper, in the Independent, that they've got a dreadful record in the round robin. Can they be one of the 3 teams that gets out of it? Because it's just so competitive. It's very hard to pick 5 into 3 in Munster.
Yeah, they've an atrocious record, John. They've played 12 games, they've won 1, drawn 1. They have an aggregate scoring average of, the aggregate is like minus 101. Like, they've had a really poor campaign in 18, a really poor second half of their campaign last year, and a disappointing campaign in 19 as well. So there's a lot of trends that they have to book, and I'd say that would have been foremost in Davy's mind when he took the job. How do we kind of break this Munster round robin hoodoo? The 2 years they got to the semi-final and final was when Munster was knockout via, the COVID championships in 2020 and 2021. So the first thing they'll be trying to do is try to make sure that they negotiate that they, there's all the talk last year, and I know Liam Cahill doesn't buy into it at all, that Waterford, a lot of people say Waterford peaked for the league and they put a lot of emphasis on the first 2 games and then they just fell off a cliff. And Waterford will be doing everything they can to make sure that doesn't happen. But they're coming up against a machine tomorrow. But it is interesting. Limerick were in a similar position after the 2019 league final. They beat Waterford fairly comprehensively in that league final in Croke Park. They were unbeatable in everybody's eyes. They rocked into their Gaelic grounds for the first round of the Munster Championship, and Cork handed them a fair beating now, a comprehensive beating, and then Tipperary beat them again in the round robin, and they got a bit of revenge in the Munster final, but they were eventually beaten by Kilkenny. So everything can be too rosy at times as well, and I'm sure they won't be buying into that, and I'm sure even the 15 wides they hit in the second half the last day against Kilkenny will be a stick for Kylie to beat them with. But it is going to be fascinating. Waterford, people aren't expecting that much from Waterford. I don't know if I'm expecting that much myself, but there'll surely be hellfire and brimstone for at least an hour of that game tomorrow. And the fact that they're losing home advantage, I think what they lose really is it'll cut into their support. It will cut into the support base that are going to travel to Thurles. I don't think there'll be nearly as many as there would be in Walsh Park. But the home and away record in the round robins, it's less than 50% for home wins. I think it's 46% in the 3 years it's been played in Munster, 42 in Leinster. So it's not even 50-50, and Thurles should suit them even better than Walsh Park, just given there's a bit more space to operate, and they're a seriously athletic, fit, mobile team. But everyone's expecting Davy to pull a few rabbits out of the hat tomorrow, and it's going to be interesting to see. One is Desi Hutchinson played out the field throughout the league, which I was just amazed by, just because I think he's one of the best inside forwards in the country. And despite Waterford, given some inept performances in Munster last year, he was still outstanding. He was outstanding against Limerick. He was outstanding against Clare, even when they were hockeyed. So I expect him to be back inside, but we don't really know. And it's just going to be fascinating. Davy's been talking about, what he might do and giving ideas about what he might do if he came up against Limerick. Well, they're coming up against Limerick tomorrow, so there'll be no sitting on the fence, and we'll see what he throws at them.
Okay, Michael Verney, Brian Hogan and Jamesie O'Connor on the Saturday panel. Back after the break to talk to them about Clare, Tipperary, Kilkenny in the Championship today, Galway, Wexford, so many things to talk about. Cork as well, who are not involved this weekend. Fulham 1, Leeds 0 in the Premier League. Not a good situation for Leeds to be in. They're battling to survive, and Harry Wilson has got the goal there at Craven Cottage. Is Chelsea 0, Barcelona 1. Caroline Hansen in the Women's Champions League semi-final first leg match. Some text in here on 53106. Nobody in Limerick is talking about 6 in a row or anything like that. That's outside noise from other counties trying to undermine us, says Connor. And hi lads, great stories. Jamesie's right. The 97 Munster final in Cork. The atmosphere was incredible when David Ford scored the goal for Clare. It was like the stadium took off, says Niall. And a comment on YouTube, Keith Scanlon, has everybody forgot the Munster final last year? Clare, the only team to run Limerick close lately. Yet everybody writing them off. Can't wait until Monday when you all change your tune. Come on the banner, says Keith there on our YouTube channel, because you can also watch us as well as listen on News Talk across the country. You can watch us on the digital and social channels for Off the Ball. Just let you know, folks, we're going to host a live Champions League roadshow in partnership with Just Eat. It's coming your way on Wednesday, the 3rd of May in the Mansion House in Dublin. We'll be joined by some great guests, including UEFA Champions League winners John O'Shea and Wes Brown, and Arsenal legend Paul Merson. There should be some great stories on the night as our guests reminisce about their careers and look ahead to the latter stages of the competition. This is an exclusive off-air event, folks. Tickets are limited. Don't delay. Go to www.offtheball.com/events. See you on the night. All with thanks to Just Eat, the official food delivery partner of the UEFA Champions League. Back after the break with the Saturday panel. Get your text in on 53106. Your predictions for the hurling championship. Who's going to be the hurler of the year? Who are the dark horses this season? We got Jamesie O'Connor from Clare, Kilkenny's Brian Hogan, and Offaly's Michael Verney between 2 and 2:30 after the news.
This weekend on News Talk, we're partnering with Make-A-Wish Ireland to celebrate Wish Week, starting on Monday the 24th of April. If you'd like to make a donation, visit makeawish.ie/donate. Remember, where there's a wish, there's hope.
Maybe your passion's not red, but white. Maybe you have green blood or cry gold tears. Maybe your pride is maroon or your belief is blue. Because the colours you wear are the colours you feel. The GAA Football All-Ireland Senior Championship, sponsored by Allianz, AIB and SuperValue. These are our counties. These are our colours. Advanced ticket sales only. Get yours at gaa.ie or selected Centra and SuperValue stores. GAA, where we all belong.
No, love. I've got a headache.
My back hurts.
Not tonight. I'm tired.
It's amazing the excuses people will come up with to avoid intimacy.
I ate too much.
Oh, no. It's a weekday.
Research shows that 58% of Irish men avoid sexual activity because of erectile dysfunction. So take action. Ask your pharmacist if Viagra Connect is suitable for you. You won't need a prescription. Brought to you by Viatris, Newnham Court, Malahide Road, Northern Cross, Dublin 17. Viagra Connect helps you get and keep an erection. Contains sildenafil for men over 18. Maximum dosage 150mg tablet a day. Always read the label. See viagraconnect.ie.
This spring, live the moment at the award-winning Castleknock Hotel. Situated on Dublin's doorstep, Castleknock Hotel has everything you want from a great hotel. With a choice of heated outdoor dining areas, stunning cocktail bar, vibrant and atmospheric restaurants, relaxing spa and pool. You'll be spoiled for choice. Enjoy your spring escape at castleknockhotel.com.
$13.99 at Dunnes Stores gets your pet a bag of pedigree dog food. At Aldi, only $9.24 gets your pet a larger bag of Earl's dog food, plus mega chew bones, plus assorted biscuit shapes, plus meaty beef strips, plus dental sticks and tasty twists. And still have $4.75 left over. You won't just like more value, you'll love it. Aldi, everyday amazing. Dunnes Stores price checked on dunnesstoresgrocery.com 4th of the 4th, 23. Dunnes Stores may sell equivalent own brand products at lower prices. Details at aldi.ie/swap. Excludes offers, products and prices may vary.
Virgin Media customers, the power to play lies in the palm of your hand. With our best price mobile plan exclusively for you. Add our new Free Spirit Unlimited plan to your Virgin broadband for just €20 a month. And enjoy the freedom to move with a 30-day contract. Switch your mobile today. See virginmedia.ie/mobile. Virgin Mobile. It's playtime.
Terms and conditions apply. See virginmedia.ie.
InsureMyVan.ie. Hi, I'm Ken Doherty. For all van drivers and business owners, InsureMyVan.ie is Ireland's low-cost van and commercial insurance specialist. For high-quality van and all commercial insurances, call InsureMyVan.ie.
City Financial Marketing Group Limited, trading as InsureMyVan.ie, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Future-proof. As we get older, our memory starts to falter. That's the usual story anyway. But new research has shown that even 3 seconds after an event, your memories start making mistakes. the implications could be enormous.
Future-proof.
Proudly supported by Science Foundation Ireland.
Memory Games on Future-proof with me, Jonathan McRae, this Sunday at 10
on News Talk. On 106 to 108 FM, on the News Talk app, powered by Go Loud and Smart Speaker. This is News Talk.
It's 2:00. Good afternoon. I'm Ellen Butler. The Justice Minister has requested a report from the chair of GSOC over the resignation of an officer who allegedly attended a house party with Jerry the Monk Hutch on Monday. Simon Harris says it's a serious matter and expects to have more information in the coming days. It's understood the officer told a number of people he'd been at the party, and the claim was subsequently reported to senior management. Paul Healy, chief reporter with the Irish Daily Star, says the officer has been involved in several major investigations.
My understanding is that he was involved in the investigation into the death of Detective Superintendent Colin Fox. The Detective Superintendent died in very tragic circumstances in Ballymun Garda Station in 2019, and he was actually the lead investigator into the Regency Hotel murder of David Byrne.
The Labour leader has questioned if political pressure was put on the Residential Tenancies Board over a delay in releasing information about the number of eviction notices issued towards the end of last year. Ivana Bacik says information released under Freedom of Information requests shows the Department of Housing had sight of the preliminary figures on January 19th. Deputy Bacik claims the coalition showed contempt for renters by failing to publish them before lifting the eviction ban on April 1st.
Well, we're very concerned that the Residential Tenancy Board only released the data relating to notices to quit issued in quarter 3 and quarter 4 of last year after crucial decisions were made by government. We only saw the Q4 data, for example, after the Dáil had risen for the Easter break.
The status orange forest fire warning currently in place has been extended until Tuesday. The Department of Agriculture says the risk of fire outdoors remains high, with lots of dry vegetation at present very flammable. Pat Neville from Quilsha has this advice.
This is the second highest level of forest fire warning that we have, and it means that even a very small fire in the outdoors can get out of control very quickly and cause tremendous damage. Quilsha are asking the public not to light any fires in the outdoors at all for the duration of the weather warning, and to be extremely vigilant. If you see a forest fire, never approach them. They're extremely dangerous. Call the emergency service.
And finally for now, Australian TV star and comedian Barry Humphries, best known for his character Dame Edna Everage, has died. The 89-year-old had been in hospital in Sydney after suffering health issues following hip surgery. He's best known and loved as Dame Edna, the household favourite with cat-eye glasses and the famous catchphrase, "Hello Possums." That's your news at 2:02.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Boring weekend routine? Plan your adventure with Ryanair's exciting city breaks to Barcelona, Lisbon or Milan.
A cloudy day with showers developing, turning heavy at times. Top temperatures reaching 9 to 12 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
This is Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk with John Duggan until 5. Before we go back to the panel, just let you know it's now Fulham 2, Leeds 0 in the Premier League. Not a good time to be a Leeds fan, with Andreas Pereira scoring the second goal at Craven Cottage, 75 minutes on the watch there. In the John McDonagh Cup, Kerry 12 points, Kildare 9. And we have Antrim and Dublin getting underway now. Remember, it's Galway, Wexford and Kilkenny Westmeath today in the hurling round robin in Leinster. Waterford versus Limerick and Clare tip tomorrow. You can listen across News Talk on the radio and also watch us as well on the Off the Ball digital and social channels. Delighted to have on the line the All-Ireland winning captain with Kilkenny, Brian Hogan from 2011, the ex-hurler of the year from Clare, Jamesie O'Connor, and the former Offaly hurler and now GA rider with the Irish Independent, Michael Verney, on the greatest game in the world, the small ball. Brian Hogan, Clare Tipperary tomorrow. So Liam Cahill's got a serious resume. He won everything at underage level with Tipperary. He then went to Waterford, managed them to an All-Ireland final, and now back with Tipperary with the senior team. Look, a lot of household names have gone. The Mars, Bubbles Dwyer's retired, but they've never been a county short of unearthing talent, Tipperary. And how do you think they're set for this year?
Yeah, I think they'll always produce, and they have always produced serious hurlers, serious skillful hurlers, and I think they've been waiting really for Cal to come back in for the last 2 years. Or certainly that was a sense I got from it, and this group of players. And I think after the disappointment, to put it mildly, of last year. There's a sense within the players and within the wider Tipperary hurling community that they need to bounce back. Last year was unacceptable, really, for a county steeped in traditional hurling as Tipperary are, to finish bottom in the Munster Championship, not register a point. And I think there's signs in the National League, from as much as you can, I suppose, pull from the National League, which is another that's a separate conversation. But there's definitely signs that Chip are on the up. You can see the way Liam Cahill sets up his teams. He puts a huge emphasis on goals. Very direct, hard running, and he's added a physical element to it, which you saw signs of when they played Limerick. That aggressiveness around the middle part of the field, and that, I suppose, you layer that on top of just the natural wristy, skillful hurlers that they have within the group. I expect them to make an impression on the championship this year. Now, so what that is, do I see them going all the way to the last day in August, the Sunday in August? No, I don't. But I definitely see them coming out of Munster, or being thereabouts. Obviously Limerick are the obvious ones that will come out, but I think Tipper are the signs are very positive. But saying that, going down to Ennis is a horrible place to have to go down to. And Clare, lest we forget. And obviously a reminder from that tweet earlier on. They topped the group last year, and ran Limerick right down to the wire. Did everything really, bar beat them. I think you can't really pull a huge amount from the league just because of the way it's set up. But I think this will tell us a lot about where these two teams are set up. Post this match, and it's going to be a really interesting battle.
Yeah, 14 goals that Tipperary scored in the league. Shane O'Donnell will be back tomorrow. Jamesie O'Connor for Clare. As Brian said there, they had a great Munster campaign last year. It was a brilliant drawn game. That Munster final was fantastic. Obviously, then it went to extra time and Limerick won, and then the All-Ireland semi-final was a flame out. So where are Clare this year? Can they push on from last year, I suppose?
Yeah, you'd hope that we can, John. Like the league was from a Clare perspective, they had zero interest in it. I remember paying the €18, whatever, the 50 quid in Limerick after 10 minutes. You were saying the greatest waste of €50 ever,
Don't think Clare were the only ones there, Jamesie.
Yeah, it was like, and look at the Galway match was, again, no intensity in it. So the league was just, from Clare.
Can you turn it on then? Can you turn it on like a tap?
Well, they managed to do that last year, John. Look at this date would have been etched in their minds from a long way out, because like Clare have got to go to Limerick 6 days later, John. Next Saturday night into the Gaelic grounds, and the prospect of losing home to Tip and then Limerick, hoping to really stick the dagger in and maybe go a long way towards putting Clare out of the championship. That's not a scenario that any Clare player wants to be facing. Tomorrow evening. So. Shane O'Donnell last year, John, with no league time, no game time whatsoever, appeared in absolute tip-top shape, sharp, ready. So he's selected tomorrow. You certainly hope that he'll pick up where he left off last year. He had a great year. Mark Rogers is back fully fit. Aidan McCarthy, who missed the championship last year through a bad leg break, he's back. Adam Hogan, when Dr. Hardy Cup with Tulla backbone their side, he's full back with the 20s. He starts a cornerback again, a player that was highly touted and well regarded. So he makes his debut tomorrow. Davy Fitzgerald is a loss, John, but I think look at they're in a good place. There's absolutely zero noise out of the camp, no talk. Omerta, Lohan, who's probably paranoid at the best of times. I'd say the players are terrified that Anton might about. So nobody knows what's going on. But like looking at Tony Kelly in school, and I wouldn't ask him, but Tony looks in great shape. There's a smile on the face, and I think Clare will be ready. And look, they know what's ahead of them. The genie's out of the bottle. Tip were really impressive during the league. Cahill has brought that edge to them. We know the forwards they have. We know the skill level they have. We know that Eamon O'Shea might be gone, but that goal mentality, if it's on, we're going for it. That legacy remains, and we saw that during the league. Now, whether whether he's the same type of athletic players that he had in Waterford, that could get up and down the field, and play that hard-running style, I'm not so sure about. But they'll be defensively, hard to break down. I saw Brian O'Mara, was centre back for UL, and Fitzgibbon, and Garrod O'Connor was centre forward at the other end. And those two guys had really excellent Fitzgibbon campaigns, top class players. O'Mara looks like he'd be the long term, tip centre back for years to come. So it's Clare will have to be efficient tomorrow, John. They'll have to play well, but they know the consequences of not delivering a performance tomorrow. And I think at home in Ennis, I still think that they might do enough to get over the line, but they're under no illusions as to how difficult it's going to be. And Tip, as I said, nobody arguably had a better and more, got more out of the league than Tipperary did outside of Limerick. So big challenge tomorrow.
Antrim have got to go. Go on.
Just a point on John O'Donnell, or Shane O'Donnell, John.
Yeah.
What he's able to do is phenomenal. He was in Harvard for the spring of 2019, came back, hadn't hurled all spring, winter, absolutely lit up the game against Clare in the round robin. Same last year, there was genuine concerns about whether he would hurl again after the concussion problems he had. He comes into the Munster Championship, has his best season ever, is maybe shackles off out in the half forward line. He hasn't played any hurling by all accounts up until the last 3 or 4 weeks, and by all accounts, he was brilliant against Galway in a challenge game, and he's ready to go again. And on your question to Jamesie, it's all about championship for Brian Lawn. I think he disregarded the league. He was getting a bit of game time into John Conlon near the end, getting Ed McCarthy back on the pitch, getting a look at Mark Rogers and a couple of other lads. And just a quick one as well, on the 3 years the round robin has been played, Clare have the best record in Munster of any of the teams. So they've got 17 points from a possible 24. And on Jamesie's previous point of the 4 games in 5 weeks, they've probably been the best team to manage the load, it would seem anyway, statistically over the last 3 years. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they manage it over the next while. And to me, I'm very disappointed that this game isn't on television tomorrow. To me, this is the game of the weekend.
It's on Jago, yeah.
Yeah, this has the most on the line, and Jamesie and people in Clare will probably be fairly disgruntled by the fact that 3 of their Munster games, I think, are not on terrestrial television, which is disappointing. But to me, this is the game of the weekend. Very, very difficult game to call. On Cahill has got a bounce out of Tipperary straight away. You knew from the first league game they looked like a different animal. On Jamesie's point, whether they have the athleticism to play the way Waterford did and to get what he got out of Waterford is probably questionable. But they know he knows only one way to set up and one way to go at it, and yes, that's going to be an absolute belter of a game in Ennis.
Okay, Antrim 1-4, Dublin 3 points in the first of the round robin games in Leinster. James McNaughton with the goal at Corrigan Park. That match started at 2 o'clock. We have Kilkenny against Westmeath and Galway, Wexford later on. 53106. Barry Nasher, Tom Morrissey for Hurler of the Year. Adam Hogan of Clare for Young Hurler, says one of our texters. And another one, Cork are simply there to make up the numbers these days. We are fodder for Limerick, Kilkenny and Tip. We're unlikely to even get out of Munster. I wonder, is this person actually even from Cork who's texting in there? They were 2 years ago, they were in the All-Ireland final. Michael Verney on this. They're not playing this weekend. Pat Ryan, Cork, where are they at? Are they going to get out of Munster?
I thought they would before, but I thought they would before the year kicked off. I'm not so sure now. There was that inconsistency that we've associated with them in the last couple of years. They probably trialled a good few players throughout the league, but I think if they're fit, they're going to go back to Shamie Harnedy, they're going to go back to Damien Callahan, they're going to go back to Patrick Horgan, and it'll be most of the same faces that we've seen over the last while, with a few new players sprinkled in. But it's very hard to get a read on them. They went down to Nolan Park to play Kilkenny in that league semi-final. I don't know, they looked to be caught between different game plans and styles of play. I wasn't 100% sure exactly what they were doing, so I've kind of gone all in on Cork before. I went all in on them in 2019 and maybe even the year after, and I've just kind of once bitten, twice shy now. I'm a bit of a doubting Thomas on them now, and I'm going to have to see it to believe it. So I don't think they'll come out, and I think the 3 that will come out will be Limerick, Tipperary and Clare in that order. But it's fascinating. This time last year, everyone was saying Waterford were going to come out of Munster, and they were fourth, and a beaten Dockett nearly 10 minutes into the Clare game. So I think that's the fascinating thing about it. The one thing about this championship. The only predictable thing about it is its unpredictability, really, and that's what makes it so exciting.
Well, better than the football at the moment, you have to say. The Gaelic football. By the way, Leeds have put one back. Fulham 2, Leeds 1. Patrick Bamford on the mark. 85 minutes on the watch in the Premier League. Brian Hogan, we talked about Imerta there with Jamesie O'Connor and Lowen in Clare. So you know Derek Ling, you know Michael Rice in the backroom team. Do you have the inside track on Kilkenny?
No, which is a good sign because a bit like Jamesie's hinted with Clare, generally if there's no noise coming out of the camp, it's usually a good sign. It means there's a tight unit. Certainly that was something Brian would have reiterated over the years, was that what goes on inside or what's discussed does not make its way out of the dressing room. And I think, to use a phrase he used often, that you can always measure the spirit within the camp by the silence that comes from mouth. So even parents, would fear asking the sons, what's the team, or certainly my dad didn't bother. He'd go down to the local club, to find out what the team was, because he knew whatever I told him was going to be full of lies anyway. So I think it's been quiet, John. I think there was a little bit of they went away in a training camp down to Cork there for a couple of days, and I think there was a bit of reassessing after the league final. Not panic stations or anything like it, but there was certainly a sense that they needed to kind of circle the wagons and kind of maybe have a couple of discussions around what happened and where they needed to go, and they've done that. They've by all accounts it was a really good couple of days, and look, they've got a good opener. They're at home against Westmeath. To be expected to win. One or two injuries, but that's to be expected. Paddy Duggan is carrying an injury. He picked up a knock in the early stages of the league final and needed a bit of treatment, a bit of surgery on that. And Billy Drennan obviously is the other obvious one. But with the way these matches come thick and fast, it's inevitable teams are going to pick up injuries, and it's trying to manage those as best you can. So to answer your question, John, it's very quiet. That there was 3 of the boys up at the club last night. I didn't even bother asking them. Like Jamesy mentioned to Tony Kelly, I wouldn't put him in that position where how is things going, because it's just leaving to them. But I'll concur with what Jamesy said. The 3 of them look fairly fit and ready for action. So look, it'll be interesting this evening to see what shape to take.
I like that. You measure the spirit by the silence. I like that phrase from Brian Cody. Is there patience then for Derek Ling and everybody? Is there realisation, look, we had a quarter of a century of Brian Cody here and all the brilliant success and all the All-Ireland titles, 11 of them. Is there a patience in Kilkenny as a public for this team?
Yeah, there is, for sure. I mean, it's the changing of the guard at the end of an era, whatever other cliche you want to use. I mean, for a lot of the players, I mean, they don't remember anything other than Brian Cody being manager at Kilkenny. You look at the likes of Mikey Butler and the lads who are only 23, so their lifetime has been Brian Cody as manager at Kilkenny. So absolutely, there is a patience. I think there's within the Kilkenny public. I think there's a huge support for Derek. He's very well liked and well respected within Kilkenny. I think he was the obvious candidate. I was on record as saying that to take over from Brian. And he's both Derek Ricey and Peter Barry in the backroom team. Would have been lieutenants, for want of a better word, of Brian's on the field. It's inevitable. You can't be but influenced by a manager like Brian during your career, and they will obviously, like Derek will want to put his own stamp on things, and I think he can see that in terms of the way Kilkenny are trying to play. But it's not, he hasn't, tried to overhaul what Kilkenny do and what Kilkenny are about, but he's trying to refine it and put his own stamp on it. And we've obviously referenced the way they're trying to use the ball maybe a little bit more in terms of the build-up play, rather than going as direct as maybe we would have before. I think in the league final, it probably struggled to get that balance. And you'd hope as the championship goes on, that little bit more sharpness would mean that the decision making would be a bit better. But Derek is an astute guy. He's look, I'm sure you all would have interacted with him over the years. He's no nonsense. Very he's a rock solid guy. He's as he was on the field. He's he's a great, he's a good leader. He's a great guy, and I think there is a patience and there's a huge support there for him. But as with sport, patience only lasts so long as well. And the Kilkenny public, no more so than anyone else, are very demanding. But yeah, look, I'm looking forward to seeing how league is league and championship is championship, and over the course of the next couple of games within the Leinster round robin, we'll learn a lot more about this team.
Yes, Brian, and Antrim lead Dublin 1-6 to 5 points in that round robin, 16 minutes into the first half in Belfast. It's Kerry 15 points, Kildare 12 in the Joe McDonagh Cup. So Henry Shefflin might be the manager of Kilkenny in the future, Jamesie O'Connor, but at the moment he's the manager of Galway. They've been the one team in recent years that have challenged Limerick and been close to them in the All-Ireland series. What will Henry have learned about his team over the last while in Galway?
What have you learned about his team, John?
Yeah.
Well, again, the league was, again against Cork, they fell apart. There's a couple of sendings off, I think, and again, I don't think they placed huge emphasis on the league. I mean, he looked at a lot of new players, a lot of young players, and there is a lot of young talent in Galway now. Whether there's enough elite talent or guys that can deliver at the highest level, remains to be seen. But they came to Ennis in a game where it was one of those kind of cross-provincial games where you're not going to be beating until the latter stages, and Galway's interest levels were probably that bit higher than Clare's, and when the game needed to be won, I thought that the experienced players kind of stood up, and Pádraig Mannion was good. Dahi Burke looked like he was back to the Dahi Burke of his prime 3 or 4 years ago, where he was the best full back in the game. He was centre back, Rowan McInerney was full, and in terms of that half back line, if they can remain injury free, Pádraig Mannion, Dahi Burke and Joseph Cooney, you have a launch pad, you have a fulcrum, and you have a line that's probably as well equipped as any to Cooney matches up well, for example, with Hagerty, and Mannion is a experienced top class player as well. So are they, like, physically, they're probably again as well equipped as anybody when it comes to taking Limerick on in that department, but they still haven't managed to get over the line against them either, no more than Clare or Tip, Cork, or the Munster teams or Kilkenny. So it's a big year for Henry. It's obviously I think he's a year into the job now. He knows what he has. He's more familiar with the players, what's at his disposal. Kevin Cooney starts today, who's Joseph's younger brother, and I think he's a good player. He's a guy that makes good use of the ball. He's just got something about him. But other than that, I mean, it's not like he's unearthed a heap of new faces. Tiernan Clean, I thought it a very good Fitzgibbon for NUIG. He doesn't seem to be featured, or whether he's injured or at the moment. But it appears to be, pretty much along the same lines as what he had last year. I don't think there's any doubt, but that they're going to be one of the 3 teams that come out of Leinster. I don't think there's any doubt, but that they're going to be in the Leinster final. I think they'll want to win it, particularly given how they completely failed to turn up in last year's final in Croke Park. They just didn't perform. So it's a big year for them. And like, the reality is for those Galway players, a lot of those guys, they have a lot of hurling played. I think this is a massive year for some of those guys, because I'm not sure how much more the Joseph Cooneys and the Dahi Burkes and the Mannions can give. They're hugely experienced, have been around a long time. So it's a big year for Galway, and I don't think there's any doubt as to, in my mind, but that they're going to be at the business end of it.
One All-Ireland in 35 years for the tribesmen. And look, we'd expect Kilkenny to beat Westmeath. No disrespect to Westmeath, but Killian Doyle is injured. He's their star player. That's 6 o'clock at Nolan Park. We know at the moment that Antrim are leading Dublin in the round robin in Belfast. So Galway, Wexford, Michael Verney. Wexford didn't have the best of leagues, but they had a great league last year and they didn't kind of push on from that. Are they going to be looking over their shoulders at Dublin and Antrim, or do you see them as one of the 3? It's a hard place to go, Salt Hill. Galway have never lost there.
Yeah, they haven't lost there in the round robin. Wexford have managed to get 2 results out of them in the round robin. They got one last year, obviously, in Wexford Park, and they drew with them in Salt Hill in 2019 when they won Leinster. I think the one thing Darragh Egan needs is he just needs all his top players on the pitch. Their squad would be a good bit shallower than any of the rest of the big hitters. You saw in the league when they were missing Lee Chin, when they were missing Liam Ryan, Matt O'Hanlon, etc. Clare just ransacked them down in Wexford Park. Then when they had a couple of those big names back and Rory O'Connor back, they put up a right good display against Cork down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and probably should have won that game. Matt O'Hanlon is named, but I believe he's touch and go, and a late call will be made on that today. They need everybody. I think they'll probably be a couple of points short of Galway realistically today, particularly in Salt Hill. it's that Dublin game is obviously going to be huge. Realistically, beforehand anyway, you would have said it's Dublin and Wexford going for that third place. Hopefully, to be honest with you, Antrim and Westmeath can cause a few shocks along the way, but I would fancy Wexford to get into that third spot. And just on Galway, like, of all the teams that need to win a provincial title, to me, Galway need to win a provincial title. Like, there was a complete no-show in that Leinster final last year. They kind of scraped over the line against Cork in a quarter-final, a brilliant performance against Limerick in that semi-final. They need to show a consistency. They need to, when they have the foot on the throat of opposition teams, they need to really push it in and put pressure on. And I think, like, it's not as if, like, let's call a spade a spade. I'm a Leinster man and Brian is as well, but Munster is miles more competitive, and it's a much bigger shark tank than Leinster is. So to me, Galway need to be pushing on and win the Leinster title. Kilkenny have won 3 in a row without being probably an outstanding team within those 3 years. I think Galway need to get some silverware on the board. That would obviously give them a pathway directly through to an All-Ireland semi-final as well. So I think it's pivotal for them to win Leinster.
What about the standard of refereeing, Michael? What's the general view of the playing population in hurling at the moment about how refereeing is going?
It's a difficult one.
Fergal Horgan was doing an interview during the week.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah, like, it's terrible to lose a referee of that standard. He's only 44, so he's another 6 years at inter-county level. John Keenan actually turns 50 this year, and in what I think is an absolutely mad rule, he has the exit stage left at the end of this year because you can't be above 50 refereeing inter-county games, which I think is mad. It's like saying that a player has to retire at 35. I just think it's a mad one. He's at the top of his game. He refereed one of the greatest games of all time in that Munster final last year, and he didn't get another game on the back of it because he missed a couple of incidents that I don't think any referee would have caught. And it took video footage to go back and look back to even find these incidents. But standard refereeing, like, you talk to any referee and they'll tell you, like, the quality is a struggle with referees. The quantity is a struggle as well. There's an absence of referees in most counties, and I just don't think we should be letting a referee of the standard of Fergal Horgan depart in the manner that he did. We don't have a surplus of referees, unfortunately. There's a handful of referees that you would be really happy with taking a big game. You don't think they're going to affect the game at all in any way, affect the game negatively. So to me, the standard refereeing probably isn't as good as it was 5 or 6 years ago, and signs would suggest that it's going to drop off even a bit more if we're losing the likes of Fergal and we're losing the likes of John Keenan, and from a football point of view, losing the likes of Maurice Deegan, who was forced to retire as well. I just don't think we should be putting a cap on what age you can referee until. I think it's mad, really. Like, look at like, say, Tony Brown in Waterford. There are outliers in every county. There's outliers in every code that are able to stay going at their optimum, at their peak, beyond an age maybe of others. So I think that's a rule that the GA need to tweak in time as well.
53106, great show, thank you. With the backing of JP McManus, are this Limerick team the first professional team in GA history? Train, gym and play, no other worries, says Sean. P.S. No matter how good the current teams are, I never saw a display as good as the 95 Leinster final when Offaly beat Kilkenny. The thunderstorm, brilliant from a brilliant team. Yeah,
I'll echo that. I thought he was going to bring up the 1995 All-Ireland final. Jamesie and the boys had me in tears for a couple of days after when Eamon Taff rattled in that goal at the end, and then Jamesie put over a free in front of the goals to make it two up, and that banner roar that was going around in 95, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, were you on the field in 98? Were you sitting down, were you?
I was not, actually. No, I was caught with a wedding that day. I can tell you, I was in Semple Stadium 6 days later, or 7 days later.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was someday, Michael, I tell you, as somebody with Clare affiliations, 95 was someday. But you had a good one the year before now. You had the 5-minute final, so you can't complain.
No, well, it's like this. We probably shouldn't have won in 94. We should have won in 95. We probably shouldn't have won in 98, and we did. So I'll take it, to be honest with you.
No, the Limerick players are amateur players, Sean. I know what you're kind of saying, but there's backing for every single team in the country. There's lots of sponsors and lots of backing for teams. But I suppose, Jamesie O'Connor, the inverted commas, the professionalism of Limerick is brought the game to a new level, and it's a different game to the one you played.
It is, John. It's completely different, and I suppose look at the skill levels. Now are probably greater than they ever were. And that's testament. Look at, I suppose, to the level of coaching. It's so many aspects. I mean, the hurleys, like I was swinging a 35-inch hurley. I mean, I pick up a hurley now, 31, 32-inch, and when the kids hurleys, and I wonder, how did I ever play with a 35-inch? So the sweet spot is bigger, the ball travels further. There's all those things, but the game is, I mean, look at the level of analysis, the sports science that's in the game now, the shape these guys are in. They're athletes. It's a lifestyle. It's it's in a great place. And I mean, the Munster final last year, and again, okay, obviously I have skin in the game, whatever, McLaren, but I thought that game was on a par with anything that I'd ever witnessed. I mean, it was just unbelievable in Thurles that day. And the levels that, Limerick and Galway and the Limerick and Kilkenny match, just the skill level, as I said, the speed at which the game, the physicality now, the tackling, it's in a good place. And it's not easy to referee, and it's not easy to police it. And look at players, as they always did, play on the edge as well, and hand passing is probably something that we'll all be probably grousing about and complaining about, because that seems to be a focus at the moment. But I mean, John, I look at the Munster Championship, the games that are coming up. I mean, Cork Waterford next weekend is a massive game for both teams, and like if Tip lose, for example, tomorrow, or depending on how the Cork Waterford games, Cork and Tip play under the lights, I think on the 6th of May. In Páirc Uí Chaoimh, like that's going to be some atmosphere down there as well. So like, there's Galway go to Kilkenny. I think in is it next weekend, Brian? Galway and Nolan Park.
Yeah.
And like, so John, I mean, there's loads to whet the appetite. There's loads of, I think, massive championship games on the horizon. And given how big a disappointment the league was, how big a damn squib it was, it's great to the championship around the corner.
Yeah.
And here at the moment, I mean, like, that was always going to be a dangerous game for Dublin up in Corrigan Park, and the worst thing, or the last thing they needed, was to give Antrim a start, and that's going to be a dogfight for them up there now to come out with a result, and that really throws the cat amongst the pigeons if Antrim turn Dublin over tonight.
As 1-8 to Antrim, 8 points to Dublin at the moment in the first half, coming up to half time. Brian Hogan, are you happy with the state of the nation of hurling as a game at the moment in 2023?
Again, just to, I suppose, reiterate what Jamesie said, the league was a bit of a damn squib, and I think there were several reasons for that. A lack of, relegation or threat relegated, and all these kind of things didn't play into it. But if you look at last year's final, it was an epic game. You've got one of the greatest teams in Limerick coming out on top. Kilkenny did everything they could have done. It was the highest scoring tally from a losing side in a final. I think there was a sense coming away from it as a Kilkenny fan, a huge pride in the team. They had literally thrown everything at it. 226 was a fair score to rack up and still come out on the losing side. So it was a good championship overall, and I think I'm really excited about this weekend. I think to come back to Michael's point there, I think it's a shame that the Clare Tip match is not on TV, because to me this is a massive, stating the obvious, I suppose, a massive game, because the losers, if Clare lose to Tip tomorrow, they have to go to Limerick then and get a win in the next round. And conversely, if Tip have to go down to Cork for their next game, so if they lose tomorrow, so you could conceivably be looking at 2 losses in your first 2 games, and that just derails your whole the whole season for you. So this game is a massive game for both Clare and Tip, because they need to get a win and get off to a winning start, because they don't want to be heading to Limerick or heading into Páirc Uí Chaoimh having to get off the back of a loss. So that's going to be a huge game. But it is the state of the nation. It's. I mean, the hurleys. I'll reiterate, concur with what Jamesie has said. I used a size 37 at one point. I think myself and Henry and Michael Fennelly were two, which is, I don't even think they make them anymore. And I think back to, you mentioned 95. One of the players I loved watching was Shawnee McMahon. He was the first guy I remember who, kind of almost consistently could put 65s over, which was, it wasn't a guarantee back then, whereas now, it's effectively a gimme for players, even from further back. So the game has changed hugely, even from when it's changed from when I played, and will continue to evolve. But no, it's in a. I still believe, John, it's in a great great place. The standards are continuing to be raised. Limerick have evolved from when they won it a couple of years ago for the first time, as any great team does. And I'm really looking forward to this year and seeing, can anyone close the gap on them? And there's some mouth-watering games over this weekend and next weekend.
Okay, very quickly, folks, just kind of one-word answers if we can. Prediction time. Michael Verney, All-Ireland winners are?
Limerick.
James O'Connor, All-Ireland winners are?
Limerick.
And Brian Hogan, All-Ireland winners are?
Yeah, 3 in a row, Limerick.
4 in a row.
3 in a row in the panel, 4 in a row for the hurling championship. Michael Verney, the dark horse county are?
Dark horse, probably Clare, I'd say. They match up well against Limerick, so if they can continue that. The problem is that Limerick seem to take so much out of a team when they throw it down to them that Limerick or Clare weren't able to back it up. So I think they'll have a B in their bonnet over that, and that disappointing All-Ireland semi-final performance. So Clare will be the dark horse.
James O'Connor.
Dark horse is Cork. Don't know the team, John. Won't know the team until next Friday night. I mean, so many injuries during the league. Davy Fitzgerald, obviously Robbie O'Flynn. Many of those guys are going to be available. But there is talent in Cork. They have pace, a lot of pace in that team, and yeah, I think they could be dangerous because if they have that innate confidence, if they get on a roll, there's been something missing in Cork. That's that. Do they have that physicality? Do they have that hardness? I don't see Limerick quaking their boots with Cork coming, but I still think they could have beaten Galway last year in a quarter final, and for me, they're the dark horses.
Brian Hogan, the dark horse county are your own?
Kilkenny are never a dark horse, lads. Come on now.
You could throw Cork into that mix then as well, but I'll go with Jamesie. I haven't been burned as much as Michael or scarred as much as Michael with Cork, but with Pat Ryan, over them, I just, because they've got so much pace in their team, I just think if they can pull it together, I agree with Jamesie. I think Cork potentially, but again, it could be.
Okay. And just to finish, hurler of the year or hurler to watch, Michael Verney.
Hurler of the year at a massive price, Nicky Quaid.
Right. Okay. Jamesie.
One to watch, Mark Rogers.
Right. Of the banner. And Brian.
I'll go stay close to home. I'll go Billy Drennan.
Hopefully he'll be back to fitness as well. Brian Hogan, Jamesie O'Connor and Michael Verney, you're all gents. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for speaking to Off the Ball. Thanks for previewing the Hurling Championship on News Talk. Enjoy some great matches over the next few months, folks, and we'll chat soon.
Cheers, John. Thanks a minute. Cheers, lads.
Cheers.
Great to talk to the lads there. Just let you know, Fulham have beaten Leeds 2-1 in the Premier League, and what's going on in the hurling, just check the score here. In the Leinster round robin, Antrim 110, Dublin 12 points. Not much between them. We're going to talk Gaelic football with Colin Boyle, the All-Star from Mayo, after this.
Off the Ball on News Talk.